Good morning, everybody. How you doing? Look at this weather, can't believe it. The last time I was on this venue was like a monsoon. I couldn't believe it. I'm here today on the Burton Joyce stretch of the River Trent. The main reason why we're here is because in just over a week's time, we've got the final round of the Feeder Masters Super League on here, and our Dam Busters team are going to do our very, very best to finish in the top 10. So we're here today just to kind of get a feel for it. James Placer's here right now, Max Stevens is on his way down, and our other team member Danny unfortunately can't make it here today. But this is just going to give us a bit of a feel for it. These lads haven't fished the venue since this match last year. However, when I said we haven't fished it since last year, I was actually here 3 days ago for our latest group coaching day with Dean Barlow. So we have got a bit of an idea about how it's fishing. The conditions were very, very different there. I'm actually based myself on peg 15, okay, and this is a day ticket stretch. So if you do ever want to come fishing here, it is a day ticket water run by Ashfield Angling Association. Some of the pegs aren't incredibly easy to get down to be fair. There are some easier ones than this one, but we've been told that there's around 2 feet of extra water in the river at the moment. So we have had quite a bit of rain. The water looks quite clear to be fair, and that wind isn't too bad either. So I'm going to get all my gear down. I'll show you all the rigs and everything, and show you the kit that I'm going to be using and the baits, and it's just going to be a really interesting session just to get a feel for how it's actually fishing, and hopefully it's going to give us some sort of idea about how we can approach it in just over a week's time for that final round of the Super League. In case you're wondering what these lines are that are on these legs, that is basically a 50-centimetre mark. Lots of the matches that we fish, you're not allowed to wade any further out than 50 centimetres. By having those markers on there, it just means that I'm not breaking any wading rules. Mix wise today, I'm going to use one that I haven't used on here before, and that is the Super Feeder Sweet Fish Meal. It's obviously, as the name suggests, it is a sweet fish meal mix. It's very dark, as you can see. It looks like there's a bit of feed in there, but I'll get a better idea of how much feed's in it once I actually mix it up. But it's dark, it's fish meal, and it's sweet as well. Something that I'm really, really confident in, and I'm just going to use that on its own today. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what response we get. And as well as the ground bait, just for something that I just wanted to try from something that I've tried on other matches right here on this river, is I've actually got some crushed hemp as well mixed up, slightly over wet, and that's something that I will be putting through the feeder as well, particularly if the fish drift off. Sometimes that can just be something that just gets the fish back into your swim, so that's something I'm going to be trying as well as the ground bait. Bit of a climb, but I'm in the water. Decided to use the platform today just for extra comfort, as you can see. So I'm going to be sat up off the water, even though this water is lovely and cool on this hot day. It's a bit warm in these waders, but I'm going to be really nice and comfortable up there. Just the normal side tray, the XL side tray that I use all the time, and I've actually got the feeder arm, the river feeder arm, and that's different from the normal feeder arm because it's got two arms on it basically, which gives it much more stability when you've got the rod up in the air, just like we do on rivers. Really nice simple setup. I'm going to kick off with, I've got a 4000 reel that's loaded with 6 pound Horizon main line, which the diameter of that is, I think it's 018, so it's quite a low diameter for the actual strength as regards some of the other branded lines out there. So it's 6 pound, no shock leader, anything like that. I've got a 12-foot distance. This is a 90 gram rod. I've actually left a 2.5 ounce tip in it, so there's no shock leader, and that's just straight through to the rig. And basically all the rig is basically, I've got a float stop there, or a feeder rubber which I can move up and down, and then I've got a snap link swivel, and then I've got a number 4 stot which is going to stop the rig, as you can see. And then I've just got a length of line about 10 centimeters below that with a loop, and that's where I'll be attaching the hook length loop to loop, really nice and simple. I am going to fish clipped up. I know lots of people fish on rivers like this, they don't clip up, but I am actually going to clip up. But I'm not going to decide where to fish just yet. I'm going to get a bomb on, get it out there, because it looks very, very slow on this inside. There's very little flow here. I think these are the pegs where, when there's extra water in this river, this is the inside where it's much steadier, and I think this is where they can actually catch a few bream and stuff. Obviously, you know, because when the water's up, the fish can come out of that main flow. But there is a tree just up there, as you can see, which is obviously holding the flow back as well. So I've got a feeling that I'm going to have to go out about 25 meters, something like that, just to get a decent bit of flow. And then once I've picked that line, I'll clip up, find out exactly what that range is, and then I'll just have a look at the feeders and stuff. You know, I think I'm probably going to need around about 40 gram, I'm thinking, to hold bottom. But that's something that I'll be fine-tuning once I get on the box and once we actually get fishing. So that looks like it's just over 20 meters. It's nice and clean there. That tip, 2.5 ounce tip, is ideal. And that 30 gram bomb looks like it's actually holding at the minute. Obviously I'll be able to fine tune that more when I get a proper feeder on, loaded with ground bait and everything. So I'm just going to go to the sticks, find out exactly what that range is, and then obviously if I need to take my clip off at any stage, it means I can go back to that exact same spot. I'll talk you through the bait tray and everything. I'll show you what I've got there. I've just washed off some worms. I've just washed them off, so some of that soil will come to the top, so I can chop some of them just in case I want to put some worms through. I've got my sandwich. I haven't had any breakfast this morning, so I'm dying to have something to eat, but everything's set up. The bait tray is really simple, as you can see. Okay, so I've got the ground bait there that we talked about. I've got some of the crushed hemp, some bronze maggots, these are actually pinkies. I've just got a tub of water, and I've got some casters there as well. I'm just going to kick off really simply, just to see if we can get some bites. Start off with a single maggot, probably put some casters through, a couple of maggots, and just be nice and frequent with the casting. And then what we've often found on this venue, and certainly found it last summer, is that virtually everybody, if you put a maggot on or anything like that, you can get a few bites, but the problem can be hitting those bites. Alright, so that is going to be the key thing today. Once, hopefully, if I've picked the right line, if I've got the right approach, I should be getting some bites, but then it's going to be a case of trying to convert those bites into fish in the net, and that's when I might need to start tweaking the way that I'm feeding, the rigs, the hook length, the hook size, and all that sort of stuff. But let's get a feeder on and let's get out there and see if there's any small fish out there waiting for us. Well, that's it, we're all set. James is in and fishing. He's just had a dace. He's put 2 lines in. Mac has arrived, and look what he's brought. 20 mini flapjack bites. Oh, it's alright, this feeder fishing, isn't it? So I'm looking forward to a cup of coffee now. So I'm just going to start off really quick casts, probably 2-minute casts. Fish nice and fine, and just see if there are any small fish out there. Hook wise, I'm starting off quite fine, just because I just want to see what's there. So I've got a size 16 MXB2 on, and that is to 0.13 hook length, which breaks it around £4, and it's a 75 centimetre hook length. Obviously I can go to a metre. I do have some metre hook lengths if I need to go longer than that. Hopefully I don't, and I can obviously shorten that if I'm missing bites, but 75 centimetres is just a nice length to start off with. Just going to kick off with single bronze maggot, just to see what's out there. Just 3 or 4 maggots. I have got a maggot, you know, loads of maggot feeders with me as well. So obviously sometimes a maggot feeder can be best, but I'm just going to keep that feeder going in. It's got a 30 gram feeder on at the moment. I think that might be enough. Obviously I can step that up if I need to. There's a bite straight away then. As soon as it hit the bottom, I think I've hooked it. Yeah, there we go. That's encouraging. We're expecting roach, dace, and bleak as well. You know, they're the main species I'm expecting on this. So that's good. And it's also encouraging that the rig's working all right as well. This ground bait, I've got to be absolutely honest with you, it's the first time I've used this ground bait in this situation. I know some of the sonar baits anglers have been using this mix, but it is a little bit heavier than what I expected. So I've got it a little bit on the dry side. It's not a very big feeder I've got, and I obviously want the feeder to be emptying. And if I am going to be getting bites as soon as the feeder goes in, like that, then obviously I want the feeder to empty right on the spot. I don't want it emptying on the way back to me, but we've hooked that one as well, so that's 2 in 2, which is encouraging. Brilliant. So that initially would say that the rig's working alright, and they are the target fish. Whilst there's lots of those fish, even though I've just dropped that one bike, while they are in abundance, they can be the hardest ones to catch. We've just got it in 2 in 2, which is good, which would suggest it's working alright at the minute. But obviously things can change. Those 2 bites came as soon as the feeder went in. So I'm going to be really conscious about only lightly packing the ground bait into the feeder. So I need that to be emptying right on the spot where my line clip is, on that line, so that the fish are going to be on that one line in the river, if that makes sense. I don't want it to be emptying on the way back to me as I'm reeling back in. That was a quick knock just then. That's good, we are getting bites. I think we've hooked him anyway. Or have I wound that one off? It was on that. Yeah, I've wound that one off. It was on. I don't think I hooked that. I'll be absolutely honest. I don't think I hooked that. I think it was the rig that hooked it. It was the rig that did its job there. Now, some people do this without a line clip, but for me I prefer to do it with a line clip. When you're after small fish, it's a little bit different if you're after chub or barbel. So yeah, there's some fish out there. I just missed that one. So now it's just going to be a case of tweaking things now. I can obviously alternate the hook bait. I can obviously alter what I'm feeding, the way that I'm feeding, the hook length, the size of the hook. It's only a 16 I've got on at the minute, which isn't very big obviously, but what you've got to remember is the size of fish that you're catching. If there were fish were 4-6 ounce fish, and you know, you could get away with a 14, maybe even a 12 sometimes. But when these fish are only ounce fish, then the size 16 is matched better to the size of their mouth, if that makes sense. Didn't get a bite that time. I'm just going to leave it. So all I'm going to do now is, over the next 15-20 minutes, keep that feeder going in and try and convert all these indications into fish in the net. They're better stump dace, aren't they, them? There's any weed coming down. I've had about a dozen fish now, but I've just started missing bites for some reason. I'm playing around with the rig, with the you know, the bolt effect and semi-bolt effect, and that's not really made any difference yet, but I've suddenly just started missing bites for some reason. So before I start changing hook lengths and all that sort of business, I'm just trying 1 or 2 different hook baits. I've got pinkies with me to try. I've caught some on pinkies, caught some on single maggot. And at the moment, I've just got a little tiny piece of worm on. Still only got a size 16 hook on. And if I can't find a better hook bait, or a way of putting the hook bait on that hook in a way that's going to convert those bites into fish, then that's when I'll start shortening that hook length, and I might even step up the hook size as well. I can get bites on with pieces of worm, but it's nowhere near as quick as a, you know, brightly coloured maggot. Whether it is a visual thing, I'll just take that off now. What I'll do is I'll just put a maggot on. Let's put a maggot on. Really nice and bright. It's a bronze colour, as you can see. Really stands out in this clearer water. Let's just see if it is really that obvious. I mean, most of the bites are coming within 5 seconds of the feeder going in. As soon as the feeder hits the bottom. Let's see if we get a quicker bite with a maggot on. It does seem to have slowed down a little bit. So I think the next step, obviously feeding wise, obviously I can play around with the rig and the hook length and stuff, but if I'm not getting any bites, then I'll I'll be changing this feeder for a maggot feeder to see if they prefer it without, you know, without ground bait going in. Quite often on clearer rivers, the maggot feeder is the way to go, you know, when you cut ground bait out altogether. That's something I'll try in a minute. First couple of bolts going through. Well, I've been fishing now for about an hour, and I've just been trying so many different combinations of ground bait, when I'm feeding maggot, with casters, pinkies. I've obviously got some crushed hemp as well. I've got some worms, and it keeps going a little bit iffy. And I thought it was really something to do with feeding and that sort of thing. I've literally just swapped to a maggot feeder now. You can probably see my fingers slowly going yellow from the bronze maggots. I've just caught 1 or 2 fish on a maggot feeder. However, I've just hooked a fish, and I'm guessing it was another dace. And within probably 2 turns of the reel, it's suddenly locked up, and a pike has took it. So it's very evident that we know that there are pike closer in here, all the way up here. James has had one strike right at the end of his keep net. I've literally just had a pike right on my feed area, so that obviously could be the main reason, or one of the reasons why it keeps going quiet. That's the nature of the beast fishing this sort of venue. So I'm just going to have a sandwich, just going to have something to eat, and then I want to try something different now that I know there's 1 or 2 pike out there, just to experiment. I know I can get bites from dace, so I think I'm just going to step up hook size now. Obviously I know there's some pike out there that are going to be interfering things, so I'm going to step up the hook size, be a little bit more positive, and see if I can see if we can catch some fish that way without being quite so negative and so focused on small fish. Looks like the rain is here. I can't believe how the conditions have changed. This is not very nice, is it? Thankfully we've got the bait brolly up, which is protecting everything. I've just got a bigger bait on now, just sitting with I'm sitting with 2 pieces of worm on, just so we can get a better fish. Having a cup of coffee. Hopefully this is going to blow over, but what we have just noticed, we've just noticed that the water level has actually gone down by about, I'd say it's gone down about 2 inches since we got here, which is really surprising. I hadn't noticed that. So yeah, that's something obviously that we tend to look for when we're fishing on river matches, and obviously if it was coming up, then obviously there could be safety concerns there. So always be very aware of what the water level's like when you're fishing rivers. We always get the best weather in July, don't we? It's a better stamp fish, that one. The roach, that one. Much better stamp. I keep getting runs of fish, but then they just keep disappearing on me. Pretty sure it's pike. I've had 3 now, three pike on, and they've all been right out there, right where I'm fishing. They're a lovely size for them, aren't they? Keeps going quiet, but I've had 3 on now that have hit the feeder. Again, the bites are coming instantly. Slightly longer tail on now. Better stamp fish, that one. Really conscious as well with this mix. It's the first time I've really used this mix, and I was surprised how kind of heavy it is, you know, how well it binds. So just to combat that, I'm using it really on the dry side. I missed that one. On the dry side, so it empties from the feeder almost instantly. So obviously when you're getting bites straight away like this, you need your feeder to be emptying, you know, right on the feed area. You don't, you know, if the ground bait was too claggy or it was binding in the feeder too much, it wouldn't be emptying until you were reeling back. And that's obviously how you're going to spread your feed around the swim. difficult to show you how dry that mix actually is. You see it's barely holding together when I squeeze it. That just means it's emptying as soon as I strike the feeder out. Even if the bite has come instantly as soon as the feeder's hit the bottom. See the weed. There was a fish on as well, but you can see the weed there as well. You know, and that's another reason why I don't like to leave it in too long when I'm fishing like this as well. But the main reason is when you've got a long hook length like this one, or a reasonably long hook length, sometimes you might have had a bite straight away, or even on the way down sometimes, as the feeder's falling through the water. If you've had a bite, sometimes you can be sat there and your bait's being smashed. So I only like to leave it in a couple of minutes tops when I'm fishing like this. And that helps that constant feed going in as well. Just like if you were float fishing, you'd be constantly loose feeding, wouldn't you? And that's the same sort of thing. Well, I can't believe this is the same day. Look at the weather now. That storm's passed over and it's absolutely glorious again. It's been a very interesting session, just really because you were able to get plenty of bites, certainly early on, particularly from dace and roach, fishing with maggots. You could put a caster on as well, bits of worm, you could get bites. However, as the day's gone on, the water level has dropped a little bit. We have had 2 storms that have gone through as well, so extra water has gone in. It's coloured up all the margins again. But this session just keeps going dead, it just keeps going quiet. And like I say, at the last count now, I think that's probably four pike I think I've had on now. So, you know, there are pike out there, and when that's happening, you don't know if that's the reasons why you've suddenly stopped catching. You know, you don't know if it's something that you've done, you don't know if it's the way that you're feeding the swim, and you don't know if there's pike out there. So, you know, quite often on these sorts of sessions, on these sorts of venues, the peg can suddenly go quiet and you don't know the reason why. But obviously if you do go and hook a pike then straight away, then you know that there is obviously pike out there. So that's something you're always up against. But it's been really interesting. We've only had a couple of net fish, come off a lot of fish as well. So I've been playing around with the hook size as well. I think a 14 probably has been about the best, I think, although you could get more bites on a 16, but you seem to hook more bites on a 14. So sometimes it's a balancing act between the two, between getting the bites and obviously converting them into fish. And the main species has been dace, as expected, but we have had some roach as well. Haven't had any perch, and I haven't seen any other net fish caught either. So it's been very much a summer river. This is what it was like last summer. You know, the river was low. Whilst this is a little bit higher than then, generally throughout the last summer, the level was low and clear as well. So it just lent itself to small feeders and small hook baits and small fish. But yeah, it's been a really interesting session, and you know, we're always learning at this game. But don't forget, this is a day ticket stretch. If anybody does want to come here, you can see, you can park behind your peg there. One or two of the pegs are a little bit steep on the bank side, as you can see here, but they're not all like this. There are some others downstream and upstream that are easier to get in, and it's just £6 for the day, and the bailiff comes round on the bank. So I hope you appreciate me sharing this little bit of a session with you. It's always nice to revisit venues that you used to come to as a kid. This is where my dad taught me how to fish with a stick float when I was a kid. So it's always nice to come back to these venues. And obviously if you can catch a few fish as well, then that's the icing on the cake. So hope you've enjoyed this bit of an insight. If you have, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you want to see some of the future videos that I've got rolling out throughout the rest of this year. Thanks everyone. See you next time.